Welcome to the Indie Horror Junkie podcast. Tonight, you will be joining Rotting Ricky and Asylum Amy as they play host to some of the true movers and shakers in the indie horror scene. So lock your doors, check under the bed, and get comfortable, because here we go.
And we're the Saska Sisters. And this is Indie Horror Junkie! Indie Horror Junkie! Indie Horror Junkie!
Hey, that music always gets me.
What's up, Junkies?
Yeah, how you doing there, Lance?
What's happening, sir?
Doing well, doing well. Very excited. We got 100th episode out of the way now, and let's get started on 200. So let's
start looking forward to 200. Exactly.
We'll see what happens. All right. Well, we got our special guest back in the green room right now, so let's do some quick housekeeping. First up, we want to mention Reels of the Dead. Very exciting. We start filming in January, and we're looking for a premiere that will happen sometime in May. This is going to be a new horror anthology, originally from the Indie Horror Junkie Film Fest, or excuse me, Indie Horror Junkie crew, and we're really excited about it. It's all written, mostly cast already, and we start filming in January, so I can't wait for that one. And then we've got, as always, we mentioned The Clock, which is our first Indie Horror Junkie feature film. That's pretty much everywhere that you can stream it, and probably even some places that we don't have listed there. It says to the Roku, but I think it might already be on there. But Screamify as well. Screamify is a great new streaming service for solely horror, so definitely check that out. And if you can, watch The Clock. Let us know what you think, and see if we should continue making movies or just go to like Hallmark movies. All right? Then we've got our good friends there at Terror Cards. Definitely, that's a great app. Check that out. Basically, what it is an app that you get on your phone, and they have deals with various film production companies for movies, like they've got with The Clock, and you get clock trading cards and all these trading cards from other of these movies. It's a game where you can trade the cards with friends, collect all the cards. They give bonuses away depending if you get like entire sets. It's really cool. It's a free app.
It is a very cool concept that they got going on.
Love that. Yeah, they're getting more and more movies added all the time, which is more and more cards and signature cards and all that good stuff. So head on over to terrorcards.com and get that app if you haven't got it already. Let's see here. Oh, we also have the Nightmare Collection.
Nightmare Collection.
Yes, this started way back in 2001 when I made my first one, the Nightmare Collection Volume 1, which is funny because that's our guest today. One of his short films, that's how we first met, is on the Nightmare Collection, which we will show you later. We did Volume 2 a couple years ago, and then Volume 3 just recently. Finally got them all out on DVD so we can close the book on the Necronancy Saga and the Nightmare Collection to start up Reels of the Dead next year. So they are available. You can get the whole Unholy Trilogy on IndieHorrorJunkie.com, or you can get them individually, whatever you need. So definitely check it out. And then we have, boom, the latest issue.
Eileen Dietz.
Yes, issue number 19. Eileen's our cover story. Wonderful, wonderful woman. We also have a story in there on that new film from the Addams Family, Mother of Flies, which are
really good movie.
Good friend, Lance was able to review here. The review is up on our page as well. You can go check it out.
Also, as a side note, I just did Diced Reloaded, and that's also in issue 19.
Very nice. Yeah, Diced Reloaded looks really good. I haven't seen it yet, but the trailer looks great.
Oh, dude, it is really good.
I heard, and Jester too is in there as well. And then we have a whole article on Screamify telling you all about the horror streaming service. That way you can read up on that. And last but not least, we do want to mention the Indie Horror Junkie Film Fest. It is being held at MegaCon Orlando, as it usually is. That's going to be held in March of next year, but the submission process is currently open. We are accepting short films, feature films. So if you want to get yours in there and take advantage of the early submission prices, I would definitely head on over to indiehorrorjunkie.com, or you can head directly over to the Film Freeway site, which is filmfreeway.com/Indie Horror Junkie Film Fest, and get those into us and see if we can get you in the festival. It's held over at MegaCon Orlando, and those of you who are not familiar with MegaCon Orlando, you probably need to get familiar, because we're going to be out there, me, Lance, Amy, and 250,000 of our closest friends. It is a huge, immense event, and it's something to see, and we'll be right in the thick of it. So definitely get your films into us. Anything else you want to pop in there, Lance, before we get our guests in?
I just want to be clear. The submission process is still open for the Indie Horror Junkie Film Festival?
It is still open, absolutely.
Okay, I could have sworn it ended. That's my bad.
Oh, no, because the festival is not until March.
Well, that's what I thought. So
yeah, I think it ends. I have to go back and look now, but yeah, no, it's still going. The submission process is still going. So
okay, good to know. I'll correct my videos moving forward.
I know, man. What's up with that? All right, no problem. So yeah, it is still open. So definitely check it out. And let's go ahead and introduce our guests. We have Christopher Alan Broadstone. He's somebody that I met 20 years ago. 20 years ago. Yeah, I'm aging myself a little bit here, and I am looking forward to chatting with him to find out and remember how exactly we met. But I do know that we did over movies, and one of his short films was plugged into my Nightmare Collection Volume 1. So we'll reminisce about that a little bit also.
So everything's coming back full circle.
It's all coming back full circle. I love that stuff. So that's great. But we're going to go ahead and show a trailer, as we often do, to start things off. This is his film, which is called Human No More. He'll give you all the details on where you can see it and when and all that good stuff when he comes on afterwards. So for the meantime, enjoy the trailer.
Have you ever simply looked up the word life in the dictionary?
Hey, hello, Chris.
Hi, how you doing?
Doing very well, doing very well. Let's get and see what we got in the chat room here. There's Tarot Cards saying hello. Hey, Tarot Cards, we just gave a whole big spiel on your app, so hopefully you get a bunch of new subscribers in there for you today. Let's see who else we got here. We got Dominic St. Clair saying hey. Hey, Dom, how are you?
What's up, Dominic?
We got Warped Media. Hi, all. First
that's
time.
a fun one.
Make it nice. Welcome to the show. If you have any questions or anything, drop them by us, and we'll see what we can do for you. All right, Chris.
Yes.
I was just talking with Lance here, and I wanted to kind of reminisce a little bit. How exactly was it? Did we first cross paths, and how did that work to where I was able to get My Skin, which is your short film that was in my original Nightmare Collection? Refresh my memory, because obviously I don't have one.
I'm not sure I do either. The thing that I was thinking about it. I said, honestly, I don't know how you knew about My Skin, and I don't know how or why you contacted me or knew how to contact me. However, because this is the interesting part, at least for me. I knew about you, and I don't even know how either. Because this was back in the day, right? This was how long ago? Forever ago? This is
way before social media.
This is basically when I was still on, I think, a dial-up modem. I mean, that's how long ago it was. Figuring out the internet or seeing anything or doing anything was just impossible or crazy. Okay, so that said, being that I can't remember how any of that really happened either, what I do remember very specifically is my first short, Scream for Me, was in the New York City Horror Film Festival in 2003,
Nice.
which it won. Thank you very much. Very proud of that one. I know they've forgotten about me since then, of course. But regardless of that, I don't know. But I don't know if it was that year that I saw you, or it was 2004, because my third short, Human No More, which is became part of the larger story of the feature film, many years later. So I don't know. It was in New York again in 2004. That one was. So I don't know if it was 2003 or 2004, but for some reason I knew who you were, or some movie you had out at that time. I don't. You have to refresh me on that one. And I saw you in the main theater. We were in Tribeca, right?
Wow.
I saw this very, no offense, a large imposing shadow go by me. And I was like, I think that's Rick Danford. And we didn't speak. I didn't talk to you, and you were gone. And I never saw you again at the festival. So that's all I know. And the next thing I know is that, I don't know, you were contacting me. I mean, when did Nightmare Collection come out, though?
Well, let's see. Let's see if I can fill in the gaps here. Nightmare Collection 1 actually came out in 2001. So
okay.
What I'm thinking is maybe you had entered My Skin into My Saints and Sinners Film Festival or something.
Well, yeah. Well, I was in that, yes.
That's probably how I saw it.
And maybe that was because the thing is that I made Scream for Me first, and it took about 2.5, 3 years for anybody to recognize it, and then in the meantime, I had made My Skin. And then I tried to send it into some festivals because at that point, the internet was not happening. There was not a billion horror sites. There was nothing out there. So whether I found you, I don't know how or whatever. I really was in no festivals that I know of until 2003. And that's when My Skin was in, Screamfest in LA. And Shriekfest. I'm sorry, Shriekfest in LA, and then a month later, Scream for Me was in New York. I won in both at both festivals, and before that, I was like unheard of, and nobody cared. And then suddenly, everybody thought I was, oh, look, he's a genius or something. Let's get him. We want him in all our festivals. But how it worked in with you and the Nightmare Collection, I don't know. I mean, if you say it was before that, I guess it was. I
mean, let's just be happy that it did work into the Nightmare Collection.
Yeah, I mean, and that must be why I knew of you, because if it wasn't for all of that. And then suddenly I was in New York, and like I say, this big imposing shadow creature walked by, and it was you.
His favorite movie is Jaws, so he kind of moves like that in real life.
Well, if we met in New York, which obviously I remember now, I've only been to the New York City Horror Film Festival once because I had my film The Reaper, which was accepted there.
Okay.
And we got to go there. I remember it was Robert De Niro's old theater or something like that.
Right.
And the one story that I really will remember from there is I remember meeting the people running the event.
Yes.
And at that time, the movie Seed of Chucky, I guess, was either premiering there or was premiering somewhere at that time. So I remember him asking me, he says, hey, do you want one of the promotional tools from that movie? And I said, yeah, absolutely. So he walks over to this box and takes out this long strip and tears off a piece and gives it to me. And I look at it, and it was a rubber that said Seed of Chucky on it. On the back, it says, get a load of Chucky.
I think I remember that.
Yeah, I've still got it on my shelf over here. And I'm like, that's something you will not see on eBay or anything like that. So, yeah.
That takes me back to MegaCon with the fetus and what they were doing.
Yes. that was pretty nuts. So, good. So give us, we just showed Human No More. Why don't you go ahead and take us and explain to us
that looks
how
really
that all
good.
Came to be and where we can see that now.
Okay. Well, I mean, that's that movie, or rather the feature it's a long process of how that came about. I had done, like I said, I did Scream for Me, which I finished in 2000, I believe. My Skin in 2002, and then the Human No More short in 2004. And it wasn't until 2003, as I said, at Shriekfest, I was in it, and then New York, and I guess Saints and Sinners, and things started rolling and started happening. Okay. Anyway, there was these 3 shorts, all separate stories. Ultimately, I released them on a DVD compilation of my own called 3 Dead Girls, because that was sort of thematic for each film. There's always a dead girl, and the focus and the focus of these, each movie was that dead girl. So they were thematic. Anyway, it became 3 Dead Girls. That was out and available for quite a long time. I had tons of extras on it. I had like 4 commentaries for every movie, one with me alone for each, one with me and the actors. And then I had executive producer Christopher Webster, who executive produced Hellraiser and Hellraiser 2, who I had met in LA.
Very nice.
When I was there, blah, blah, blah. Eve Black was on part of it too. And they did commentaries together. So you have also this kind of crazy commentary between this, very posh British guy and this loudmouth Texas woman, and it was an interesting juxtaposition. At any rate, so this DVD had all these tons of extras and blah, blah, blah. And that was all there was for quite some time. I had begun working with a guy named Matthew Sanderson in the UK, because he had read my novel Puzzle Man, which actually finally came out at the time of New York when that was all happening. So that was way back then. He ended up reading that because of someone else I knew there that was a fan and a friend at the time. And he said, I'm not going to read your book. I'm not going to review it because, we're friends and I don't want to trash you if I have to, So he gave it to Matthew. Matthew ended up reading the book. And the next thing I knew, the guy was telling me, I may have just done you the biggest favor of your life, because he just gave you the greatest review ever written. And I read it, and it was extensive. And I was like, wow, this guy maybe knows me and my story better than I do. And everything I wanted to have people to get out of it, he got it in layers and details, everything. Anyway, we met that way. He ultimately, I've been working with him still to this day. He became a producer on Human No More and the documentary about Human No More. He's worked with me on all my books since, that came after starting with Suicide the Hard Way, which was a collection I did with short stories and poetry, lyrics, and, some short screenplays, whatever. Yeah, that was right. The short screenplays for the films, which was 3 Dead Girls. So it's all very kind of complex, but all interwoven. He kept telling me after I had done 3 Dead Girls, and even before I put that one out, he was like, you really ought to come up with something and make an anthology movie with these. And because 3 Dead Girls isn't an anthology movie, it's a DVD with 3 separate shorts and a ton of extras.
So there's no wraparound to go.
There's no wraparound
together.
Yeah, right. And I said, I don't want to do that. I mean, yeah, I do like some anthology films, but I just felt it was a cop out for me. I wanted to move on to some other things. I didn't want to come up with, let's go to the psychiatrist, and then we're going to talk about something that leads into this one, and then then they leave, and then somebody else comes in. I didn't want to do that kind of a thing or wraparound. Anyway, I ended up, after being lost in LA for 21 years, moving back home to Dallas, Texas. And at that time, I had gone through kind of a creative drought, and I was now back where I had people that were more of a support team for me. And I thought, okay, I'm going to try to do something, blah, blah, blah. He was suggesting to me still, you really ought to do something with those 3 movies and blah, blah. And again, more of an anthology thing. And I said, no. And then I wrote, I had written A Catch in Time, which he was editor on. And he had this great idea, which he often does. And he says, hey, let me show you this video I saw of some guy who wrote some book. And it's all it is in the video is this guy film of his feet walking along a beach while he reads a chapter. And I said, okay. And That didn't seem very exciting to me. But and then I said, but I'm trying to figure something else out too, and I don't know, blah blah. I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. That's usually the way I respond to stuff. But he ultimately always puts these seeds in my head, and it didn't take long. And I said, I think I have an idea. I said, I have all these Catch and Time books. The first batch I got, they printed them. The cover was crooked. It looked like crap, but I've got them. I said, how about, because this story is a Nazi type horror story. It's about an alternative history, etc. It takes place in 1938, and I said, how about if I come up with something, and the thing is that we're going to burn the books. So it's a Nazi thing, right? Everybody knows, burn the book. So how about, wouldn't it be cool if I'm burning my own book, and so that's how that started to develop. And that little seed of that turned into what the short film is, which is about 17 minutes, a super hybrid of endless string of imagery and effects, and me reading chapter 1. So I'm not even forgot what the original question was now, but I guess, how do we get to the movie Human No More from all of this? Well, that took over my idea that I had also just come up with at the same time. I said, I think I have an idea to make those 3 shorts into a feature finally, which is what you've been wanting. And he said, okay, but guess what? Now you have this other thing you want me to do, and now I'm already starting on that. So it was a whole year of finishing that, and which I was just also telling Rick a bit ago, that both the novella and that short, I think, are probably the most ignored thing I've ever done, while I think it's some of the best work I've ever done at the same time. So still trying to get people to say, hey, let's check that thing out. It's just very different. Anyway, after that, I said, okay, the idea is I will, for getting these 3 stories together, because they're so thematic, and the way that I tend to write is always following very existential ideas, concepts, and they actually, in a way, all are very relative to each other, in spite of being very different stories. So I said, I think I have a way to do it, and what I want to do is take what I couldn't do in the 3rd short, which was Human No More, and really make that become the feature. So that's what it did. And this story is just a much larger story that encompasses these other films. My skin being very, very important to it, and why everything happens. If you watch the movie, you'll definitely see why and how I expand on that concept, and how now the Human No More short is actually the end of the film. The main character of that film, Detective Nemo, it's now the whole story is about Detective Nemo and the serial killer Mr. Blight that's in the 3rd short too. In the short, Mr. Blight is only ever heard on an interrogation tape. We never see him, so we do now see him and meet him in this feature film. It's complex, so that's about where I want to end that bit.
Don't want to give too much away.
Well, not so much that, but I think we need to cap that and then start over, going, okay, now we'll talk about aspects of the film if you want to.
So just to try to understand exactly, like, you have these 3 films. Mm-hmm. You put them together as a compilation, but not necessarily as an anthology. And now you've kind of wrapped them up years later in like one feature film. Right. That's awesome.
Well, the idea of the feature is that taking the concept of the 3rd short, Human No More, which is Detective Nemo, now the main character of the feature, Mr. Blight. The actual current time of the feature film takes place on the same night that the Human No More short, it really is the climax of. So backtracks. So it's not entirely linear. It's basically Detective Nemo going to this club called the HAB, which stands for Homo Amphibious Burlesque. Now,
That's awesome.
Now,
that's a great acronym.
That's not exactly, and this is homo as amphibian burlesque, as in Homo sapien and the creation of mankind and all of this kind of thing. And you'll learn all of that too if you actually pay attention to everything that Detective Nemo's saying, because there's a lot of detective voiceover, and the film is very noir in that way.
I kind of got that feeling from the trailer. It was a bit of a neo-noir thriller.
It is. It's a neo-noir in a way you're not going to expect. And it's basically him on the night of the climax, which is the third short, and now the end of the movie, going to that nightclub, which is a nightclub complex. If you're ever familiar with the old warehouse club complexes that had multiple rooms and all this stuff. I couldn't afford to go into all these rooms or do anything, but they are very much implied. And if you watch the film, you'll get it. At any rate, he ends up in this one room, which is very different from everything. And it's basically Mr. Blight's personal room in this complex. And when he's coming that night to go back to this room, he is basically just getting drunk as drunk can be, because he's depressed beyond depressed. You would learn why if you watch the movie, why I don't want to give everything away.
Right.
He has basically hit rock bottom, but he is now evaluating the meetings with Mr. Blight, because he was essentially after this killer called the Mirror Murders Killer, which is Mr. Blight. And he was there to get the guy to entrap himself, essentially. But in the process, they have all these conversations that further enlighten him, and they ultimately end up in a climax that leads Mr. Blight to do something to him, his family, that destroys his life.
Wow.
So he has now reached this point, which he had already reached in the short film Human No More, of the bitter end, but now we know why that's all happened, and it's a little bit different as to why what happens in the feature. It's not quite the same as in the short Human No More. It's definitely more expanded. The end, there's an additional ending onto it, where it used to be that he went down into his basement office and that's where it ends. Now he comes out. We get to see him finally come out, and he just essentially walks into this new reality. Again, I don't want to expand on that too much, because if you see the movie, hopefully you'll get what I'm talking about.
I really want to see it, to be honest with you. I don't think there's enough noir
right.
and noir horrors out there.
Yeah, and the thing is that it's complex. I admit it, but it's all there in a way. And what it's not going to be your traditional horror film. You're not going to find a lot of all the tropes that people often want in horror films, or they complain about. They want them and they go see it, and then they bitch about it because they're there.
I have found with tropes that it's very, like, if you do them with intent, like, you kind of are poking fun at yourself when you do it.
Yeah,
I let it slide a little bit, but
right.
If you put it in there kind of sloppy, I'm like, really?
Right.
That's
just like you're trying to. You can
it's lazy.
Plugged in, yeah.
And I think what again, if you want to watch Human No More, you're going to go dark, for sure, but it's going to be not what you're expecting. It's going to, and what really the case is with the first two shorts, My Skin and Scream for Me, is that each one, Detective Nemo and Mr. Blight, are telling these stories. Okay. First, Detective Nemo tells the story of My Skin, which is an actual case that he was working on. And Mr. Blight knows about it. He wants him to tell him more details about it, because Mr. Blight has reached a point where he has given up entirely on humanity and on everything. And this is, one of the reasons he's become what he is. But now he receives this, and he's basically, there is nothing after, you die and that's it, and I don't care anymore. I'm sick of the human race and they should be punished. And that's just it. And I'm going to take care of it. I don't either. I mean, the way I think of Mr. Blight is he's so wrong, he's right. And most people kind of get that. And I think that's what's disturbing about him, because they're like, I agree with like 90% of what he's saying. You know,
it's kind of that dark side of you that you don't want to admit that's right, but you're like, yeah, he's making a lot of sense.
Right. So it ultimately, the story of My Skin that Detective Nemo relays, which is an actual case he had been working on, Mr. Blight is familiar with, he implies, or he basically says, you know, you think there's nothing afterwards. This story, My Skin, is a direct it's just antithetical to what you think, and it is going to prove to you that no, there is something out there after that. This pisses off Mr. Blight. He doesn't like that idea at all. He thinks you're just, you know, giving me a load of crap. But so he then ultimately tells his story of another character that is the madman character that's in Scream for Me, which is about 2 serial killers in that. You know, one becoming the victim of another. And
oh wow!
Ultimately, Mr. Blight uses this story to convince Nemo that, look, this guy you were hunting, this madman character, I met him. I met him in here in the Hab, and this is what I learned from him, from this experience, which is essentially there's nothing. There is nothing. Okay, and so you're full of it. Well, ultimately, not to give too much away, after these 2 stories have been told, which contradict each other existentially, Nemo returns while Mr. Blight is back at in his bar room there, pontificating on the misery of life and no God or whatever, and basically lays out, his files, the information, the evidence of everything I told you is true. Wow. Which in turn pisses off Mr. Blight even more. So now he's reached a new level of wanting to bring Nemo down to his misery level, and to try to get things to evolve or to happen, to prove to himself and to prove to Nemo, we're going to find out essentially if there really is something. Really, really, for real. And what if you have to see the movie to see what occurs and why it occurs? And there you go. I don't want to say too much more. If you have some questions about all that mess I just told you, please ask me.
I'm kind of getting like a Batman killing joke type vibe from that at the end, like Joker trying to bring Batman down. Like, it just takes one bad day for somebody to go crazy.
Right.
It sounds kind of like what Mr. Blight's trying to do there at the end. Like,
yes.
So, I mean, how do you put something like that together? Because I guess the 3 shorts were so long ago,
right?
Like, how do you get back to trying to put them together in a feature like that?
It was, I don't know. I really don't. I mean, I just know that I did it. Which often
because I know your buddy had been bugging you about doing that.
Right.
So how did you land on the feature aspect?
Well, I wrote the script and then I inserted the shorts in where they would be, and I sent it to Matthew, and he said, "You've done it. I love it." And now we just have to make it happen. Gosh, how can I explain it further?
Did you guys go through like crowdfunding to get the budget for it? Or?
No, we went to MasterCard and Visa like usually I do.
Rick knows a thing or two about that.
And the old day job, I hate to admit that I have. But no, I had to, I've always funded myself. I've never, in spite of all the contacts I made in LA, like, people like Christopher Webster and others, never could make anything happen with my feature films, other feature films that I still want to make now currently. My failure in life has always been not being able to talk to investors, network well. I wish I had a lot of what Rick has, which is this ability to create a gigantic empire of, and people that care about helping and doing things. I have Matthew, and he lives in the UK, so we're not even in the same country.
Matt, you sound like a hell of a guy.
yeah. He is a hell of a guy. And I have Rick Wildridge too, who has helped me with all of the shorts and etc. And he actually plays George Lamonsky in My Skin. He's the killer in My Skin, and he plays Harrington in Human No More, the feature, who is George Lamonsky in hiding in the Hab, in the room where Mr. Blight is. And you will find out basically that he has turned Nemo on to the fact that I think the guy you've been looking for is right here.
What was his name again?
Time.
Which one?
The guy we're talking about who played in My Skin and Human No More?
Rick Wildridge.
All right, because who's Tony Simmons?
Tony is been in everything I've done, basically. He was Madman in Scream for Me. He is Death in My Skin. He's Detective Nemo in Human No More, the short. And he's Detective Nemo in the feature. And
that's the question that I had, because you filmed My Skin and Human No More back in the early 2020s, right? And then you came back many years later to do the Human No More feature, yet Tony was one of the main actors in.
Yes. So now that you bring that up, and I think this is what Lance was kind of getting at a little bit ago. How in the world did you possibly, So what I've said is, and I think this is what is fascinating and people don't understand about the feature, is this is a movie that actually took me 20 years to make happen. And because those shorts were so long ago.
Right.
So essentially we have Detective Nemo from 2004, and then, Detective Nemo in 2018 when we were shooting the new stuff. A huge amount of time went by.
Yeah, 14 years. Huh?
Yeah. And ultimately I needed someone to play Mr. Blight in the new footage for the feature because Gabriel Siegel played Garrett Druck, the serial killer, who I call the serial killer with a heart in Scream for Me. The nice one, the poor, sad, miserable emo serial killer. The
lesser of two evils.
Yeah, yes, exactly. And
the poor man's dead.
I hadn't worked with him since then. He went on to other things, and he was more of a theater actor. Now it's a long story. However, I wanted to work with an actor from Australia who I'd met a long time ago, and I said, hey, and I got back in contact with him and I said, can we make this happen? I don't have any money, blah, blah. I know you're a real actor and you get paid and all this stuff. And he was like, he wanted to do it and he was into it. And there were problems because of, his wife, who was his manager, and a lot of stuff that was happening. And they were like, you don't work for this. You can't do a project like this anymore. It will ruin your career, or where you've gotten to.
Of course.
Ultimately, I just couldn't afford him. Is what it was getting down to. And it's also getting down to, I have to make a decision. He's either got to do it or I got to find somebody else. Matthew, again, steps in out of the blue and he's like, what about Gabriel Siegel? And I'm like, I don't even know if that guy's alive anymore. Seriously, it was back in 2000. We shot that movie in, 2019 or 2018. And so I said, I don't know. I think he found Gabriel's Facebook, and I then tried to contact him, and I said, "Hey, because he didn't hardly post on Facebook." I'm like, is he really even still alive?
Is it even his actual?
Right? Is it even his? and oddly enough, it wasn't long, and he responded on message, and he's like, "Hey, what's going on?" I'm like, yeah, hey. And then he says, I didn't say anything yet. I said, yeah, I'm working on the new movie. I'm trying to make it happen. And he said, well, I really got out of acting and I wasn't working out finally. But, if you're ever doing something again, let me know. Keep me in mind. Ha, 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 ha. And I said, by the way, you were just suggested to me to, do this part, which is Mr. Blight. So I sent him the script and he was like, okay, yes, I'll do it. So he came out of retirement in a way to do this part. And so what's sort of surreal about Human No More, the feature, is that you have the same actor playing Madman in one of the stories, playing Death in one of the stories, playing Detective Nemo. And it's kind of like, so is any of this really real, or is it all just in these people's heads? Not to mention that the serial killer with a heart, who's played by Gabriel Siegel in Scream for Me, is now playing Mr. Blight. My idea is that because these characters are the same actors, and when they tell their stories, they're projecting themselves into the story.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can definitely see that.
Right. So they're projecting themselves. So again, you're thinking, what are they making up? What are they telling? What's the truth? What isn't the truth for sure?
Right.
And Mr. Blythe definitely steps up and says, he makes comments basically like that. You're projecting. You're projecting. You're not telling me the whole story. Although he does begin to prove that. Yes.
I like that concept though. That's a good concept right there. I like that.
Well, thank you. And ultimately, again, I know that I've defaulted into horror, but many people, I often don't even consider myself horror, even though I am, but I'm not, or am I not, which is why I call everything I do now a macabre thriller. I don't say, oh, come check out my new horror movie or my new horror book.
You're projecting horror.
Yeah, because I feel like if I say that, everybody's going to have a preconceived idea, and then they're going to be very disappointed because I'm not going to give them, the tropes, and I'm not going to give them everything they think they're going to get, they want to get. So I call
it kind of falls into a very nuanced subgenre that you're making.
Yeah. So it's macabre thrillers, and the only other thing I can say to help people out is a lot of people who have seen the feature ultimately compare me to more of a David Lynch. And some people,
that's
people,
not a bad thing.
People either love David Lynch or they just don't like him. It actually kind of put me off a little bit at first because I've never been a huge David Lynch fan. And he's either kind of hit or miss with me. I have since grown to appreciate a lot of what he does. And I do like David Lynch quite a bit. But I now also see how I am being compared to him, because it's a similar horror style or a dark style that you find in David Lynch films, which is, more of a surreal, nightmare logic kind of thing. I don't know. You have to see the movie to really, I guess, appreciate what I'm saying there. As far as my books are concerned, though, they are much more of a horror type thing. They are very graphic, very dark, and in the way I describe them best is if you like Edgar Allan Poe, Clive Barker, and The Twilight Zone, you'll love my macabre thriller that I've just written or whatever.
I was going to say you're obviously very influenced by Edgar Allan Poe, and that just spews horror right there.
Right. Yeah, and I'm influenced by Poe a lot because of his prose style. If you read what I've written, you'll see that I don't write down to people. I'm not like a Stephen King that keeps it very simple in style. I have no problem throwing in the big word and making you have to go to the dictionary. And I'll write a paragraph that is a page long sometimes, but it's written in a way that it all adds up and it all makes sense. It's not like, oh my God, this guy's overwriting or over whatever. But yeah, so if you read some of my reviews ever for the books, and especially the new one, I've been seeing a lot of stuff that I'm like, yes, that's exactly what I was hoping to do. So anyway,
I think when you're writing a book, though, like that's hugely important. That's
right.
The descriptive writing and being able to expand upon like a paragraph, like you said, a paragraph could take a whole page.
Right.
That's what makes a book a book. That's why a lot of times books are often better than the movies. Somebody makes a movie based off a book. Right. Everybody's like, well, the book was better. That's why.
Yeah. And I've always felt that it's not always just the story for me that's important. Although I'm very story driven, very character driven, plot driven. I want everything to add up. But I like to read. When I read a book, when I see somebody who writes creatively and interesting, I'm blown away. That's when I really connect and I go, God, that's what I want to be. Like I think Clive Barker is that way. He's a very good prose writer. Poe, one of the best things I'd read all of a sudden was I'd never read Dickens' A Christmas Carol until a few years ago. And I read the first so I'd never really read Dickens, and I read the first paragraph, and I just stopped and I said, wow, that guy is somebody who knew how to write. And I said, that's what I'm trying to do. That's what I want to do. So I hope people get a lot of that. I mean, from the reviews I get, I feel confident that I'm kind of doing that, so I'm pretty happy.
I was going to say, from the stuff that I've read, I mean, when it comes to your books, I mean, you're pretty much hitting on point with those things. You think you're cutting yourself short, man.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you.
I do have some photos here that we can bring up, and you can just give us a brief understanding of what it's about. And so we'll start out where we first picked up. This is the collection, which is volume 1. These are images here from his movie My Skin. That was a part of it. And the Nightmare Collection volume 1, we loaded down with extras. I mean, if you played the main feature, it played the whole wraparound story with all the short films plugged in, or you can go to separate sections on the DVD just for the particular short film, and you can see the short film by itself. You can see any behind-the-scenes stuff, documentaries like you can see there from My Skin, photo galleries, all that good stuff. So we loaded the DVD down with that, and that's how we first met with your film, My Skin, on that one. Let's see.
Right, and that's great that you have that out there still, because although you can still through my website pick up 3 Dead Girls, that and what you have for My Skin is the only thing out there that was the original short. So it has opening credits, ending credits, which in the feature those aren't there anymore. So if you want to get, wow, where did that come from? Let me see the original.
You got to get the Nightmare Collection, Volume 1.
that or find 3 Dead Girls, which you can on my website. So.
There you go. 3 Dead Girls as well. So I have to go back and review that one again. And then here's Puzzle Man, which is a book that was never turned into a film, right? That's just strictly a book.
No. I worked with that when I had met Christopher Webster in LA. He was in partnership with another producer named Rodney Montague, and I met through my brother-in-law. He was said, hey, Chris has got a novel you need to check out. I only had it in manuscript form at that time. I let Rodney read it, and Rodney said, wow, okay, I love it. Let's talk to Chris, because Chris, with his connections to Hellraiser movies and other indie horror stuff, said, this could be fantastic for us. And I said, okay, great. So I began to adapt a screenplay, and I went through about 7 versions of a screenplay trying to please Webster, Rodney, and myself, and could never achieve it. Ultimately, Webster was not a producer personality I wanted to work with. I ended up not really liking him because he was, I know how to do everything and you don't, and you're just young and stupid. And that's what I felt. Ultimately, though, he went through a life-changing process, and we reconnected, and he was very different, and we became good friends in the end. And like I said, he did commentaries on the 3 Dead Girls DVD. My 2 features, Color of Flame and were with his company for a little while. And then ultimately he moved on to other things. Again, and I don't even know where he is now. I haven't talked to him in years, unfortunately. I wanted to send him Human No More and say, hey, look, I finally got a feature together. Because he was a fan of the shorts. And he became a friend. And and I thought, well, yay, but is it, I guess, too late, $1 short, that kind of thing. But yeah, so that was Puzzle Man. And ultimately, Puzzle Man I did put out as the novel itself. But no, it has never become a movie. And there's no way that book could be a movie without spending a load of money. It would have to be $1 million plus kind of movie.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. And then, of course, we have this one here, A Catch in Time.
Right. And that's a novella. And I write in the beginning, there's an introduction in there that explains how this story even came about, because I didn't just say, oh, one day I'm going to write this story. It was going to be part of this compilation of stories. It had to be very short, like 5, I don't remember how many words now, but shorter than I usually like to write. And I came up with this idea. And then that fell through, and I said, this story is going, I want to do this story. And now, because I don't longer have to keep it under an X amount of words, I'm going to turn it into not a short story, but a novella, which I did. And then, later on, Matthew came up with his little idea that turned into a major work for me for a year. And although I'm very, very proud of that film, I just wish more people would see it. And it is as an extra on the Human No More Blu-ray. So if you buy Human No More on Amazon or wherever you can get it, you'll get to watch that movie.
Okay. That's pretty cool.
And that's from it. Yeah, that's from that.
That's
movie.
from that right there. Okay.
Yeah.
And then what do we have here?
Okay, so Notes to Self is an interesting thing. I originally in my life was trying to be a musician, a rock star, whatever you want to call it. And at the time, with my first all original band, which was about 9 Times, which was back in the the 90s, no, the 80s, sorry, the 80s, new wave times. We were like a jazz punk keyboard.
The greatest era of all time.
Yeah, right. I'm starting to think the same thing when I hear the music. I'm like, man, my God, that was way better than.
It was.
Yeah. Anyway, I was, I'd always been writing poetry or lyrics. I wrote all the lyrics for the band. And I had been writing some short stories too. I started Puzzle Man literally the summer after I graduated from high school. It just took me 20 years to get it finished and get it out. But during the band days, I compiled, this was back when there was no on-demand printing like there is now. And I basically Xeroxed however I could beg, borrow, and steal. I made this, 110-page book that had all my lyrics in it and my poetry from high school even, and like 2 short stories, I believe. And I sold it at shows. I had it velo bound and hard velo binding, at Alpha Graphics, and and people bought it. So over the years, many years later, when I moved back to Dallas, I ended up putting up old videos for the band about 9 Times, and re-releasing the records and all this stuff, which we had original material anyway to get rid of. And people would start showing up on the Facebook page with pictures of that book, and look, and you autographed it, 100 years ago. And I'm like, okay. So I said, God, I've just always kind of wanted to have this project, a pet project now with the on-demand publishing and everything, is to put all this stuff out again, and this time try to fix all the typos and and make it nice. And I have some additional material to add to it. I wanted to have Matthew wrote an essay for it. I had Matthew curate it because I wanted to bring back several older short stories that I had never published or done anything with. I don't know, they're neither here nor there, but they're a time of my life, a time of my development as a writer. And that's what this book really is about. It's about showing where I started literally writing and where I came from and how I've developed. Because the first story is called Note to Self, and I wish more people would buy the book and read that story, because it's the modern me. I think it's a great story. I'd love to maybe expand and make that into a novel one day. But, anyway, it's a neat story, and people should buy that book just to read that. But they're going to get a lot of other stuff, too, and it's going to be very eclectic, very different. It has, all my poetry based, dated from my first ones that I started in high school. And you can see where how I wrote and where I came about. I write a lot, an essay in there, too, about how all of it came about and how my writing style is so based on writing poetry. I mean, that's really the way where I came from, which again makes me feel a little more connected to Edgar Allan Poe, because if you read, his introduction to his poetry that's been printed 1 billion times now, he's basically says, if I could have done anything, I would have only ever been a poet. He ultimately started writing the stories, which made everybody love him, of course, only because he needed to make money, and he could make money doing that and freaking people out. It just turned out he happened to be extremely unique and good at it, which is wonderful. But so I really connect to that idea of poetry. And I think if you read my prose and my stories that I write and my books, you will definitely see it's very poetic at times, although I hope not cheesy poetic, but just nicely written. You know what I mean?
Right. And then you have the latest one, right?
Yeah. So Heather's Treehouse is my latest novel. And that's another odd book because I started writing it after I finished the first draft of Puzzle Man. So this was way, way back. And ultimately, when I went to LA in 1995 with my second band, the Judas Engine, this went with me as my project I was still trying to work on, while I would still go back to Puzzle Man and rework it a little bit every year, trying to teach myself better to write or whatever, and ultimately realizing I had screwed it up completely a few times and having to get it back to what it is now, which I think is pretty nice. But at any rate, so I when Puzzle Man did come out, I was about 300 pages into Heather's Treehouse.
Wow.
And this was in the late 90s. And I was so depressed by the failure of Puzzle Man and lack of interest. And again, at that time when that first came out, this was before 2004. 2004 was really a re-release of it. It was just that there was hardly any internet still. There was none of the sites that we have now. No way to promote yourself. Nobody. I don't know how to even figure out how you could figure anything out because there was nothing to figure out. And so I just quit. I just quit writing it. I write a very epic introduction about the book for Heather's Treehouse. So if you want to learn everything about when it began, how it began, how long it took and why, and ultimately what I would start it and get back to it and then have to quit and move on and whatever. So the book, the finished book, literally from starting is a 30-year project.
Wow.
So yeah, so it's and I'm very, very proud of it. And the hardest part, I think, of writing the book became because like I said, I had about 300 manuscript pages. And while my style at this point is been very consistent, so it wasn't hard for me to sort of pick that up, but to pick up just remembering what I had done in the story and I knew I've always known where it would end, but I didn't know how I was going to get from that 300 pages to that end. Quite. It turned into an adventure of plot and story that, again, I'm super proud of. I think everybody comments I've seen on the book is you will never know, from page to page, you're just like, what is happening? Oh my God. Okay. I got to keep going. What is this guy? I can never figure out what this guy's going to do next, which has been true of everything they've said about all my stories, books or whatever, is people are like, you're never going to know you can't second guess this guy. It's always going to be something you'd never expected.
So with that book taking 30 years to write, essentially, is it a period piece? Like when you started it?
Okay. So when I started the book, it was already going to be a few years before. So it was kind of going to be late 80s, but current enough, I thought. But now it's, and I comment on that in the introduction. I said it will forever be, a retro horror story, because
so when you're writing it, because now it's 2025 and you're writing it, was it hard to try and retrofit back to that? What you were writing?
Well, it was a case of, fortunately, I lived that time. I'm old enough. I wasn't writing about a period that I didn't live in. So that was helpful. So I knew about things that I wanted to include or not include. This is a time that one of the most important things is why I had to keep it in 1988 is, although it starts in 1716, okay, there's the first part of 1716, which launches us into 1988, which is really the bulk of the story. But I had to keep it at that time period because that is right before cell phones began to start happening. A lot of things began to happen that if we had cell phones, for instance, in that story, a lot of it couldn't happen because it's too easy. I'll just call anybody, Now we're in 1988, where if you're in a small town, you're essentially isolated. If the phone lines go down, guess what? You're out of luck. The best you have is maybe a pager. That's it.
And even then, you're a high roller.
Yeah, it's like a gamble. Are they going to answer that page? And they have radio. They have shortwave radio. The cops. There's a lot of cop stuff going on in it. But again, I had to keep the story isolated because otherwise it would never fly. But so far, nobody's said, this story really sucks. God, where's the cell phones? Where's the games? Where's the computers? There is none of that. It's, when they have to figure out blood and, what's going to happen, they can't just, plug it into a machine and and now what kind of blood they have or whatever. There's none of that forensic type highfalutin fancy stuff they have in the show Bones, at all. No Google. You can't Google anything. You can't. Yeah. So, it's a big deal when you lose the phones. It's a big deal when the power goes out. I mean,
Yes.
it's a big enough deal now, but it was a really big deal then because, now if the power goes out, your phone probably still works, at least
Hey,
for a
we're
while.
still from the generation where back
know.
in the day when you wanted to go someplace, you
Yeah.
had the big paper maps. Remember that?
Yes.
You didn't have the
Yes.
GPSs on your
Yes.
phones. I mean, trying to
Yes.
get somebody to find their way nowadays with that. No way.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's a lot of geography in this. I mean, the whole thing takes place in Edgewood, Texas, which is a real town here. And I don't know if I keep a lot of things very much literal from that town. I know, although names and names of businesses and that sort of thing are changed, but there's still the same high school. There's still the same layout. All the roads are the same. So there's no getting around. It's Edgewood. So I hope people aren't offended and try to start suing me. Although it would maybe give me some recognition, and I could,
send a little bit more attention your way.
Right.
Since we've come to the end of their show, though, so people can easily sue you, why don't you then give them some ideas of where they can find your stuff and look you up?
Yeah, well, the easiest way to find me is go to my website, and that will lead you basically to everything else. And that includes where the movie's streaming. Also talk about, I made a feature-length documentary about the making of Human No More, which you may find interesting if you watched the film. And anyway, all of that information is on there too. So the website, which I call, I'm going to try to explain this simply, and you may laugh at me, is, okay, this is where the idea came from. I hope we have a few minutes. Okay, Francis Ford Coppola's production company is what? American Zoetrope.
Zoetrope, yeah.
Right?
Yep.
And I said, how about because I like Poe, right? Edgar Allan Poe. I said, what if, he's American Zoetrope. I'm Texas Poetrope. So Texas, I'm in Texas. Poe, I say Poe trope. Some people read it and they're like, "What's poet rope?" It's really poetrope. But I do play off of that, and I want to play off that more as poet rope because now I have a trailer. If you watch the making of the cover documentary for Heather's Treehouse, you'll see that trailer, and also the documentary of the movie, you'll see the trailer with a noose. And I said that, and a noose to me is a poet rope because poets are all depressed and they're going to go out. So that's the poet rope is a noose. Anyway, so now the website is easy. You just go www, like always, poetrope.com or poetrope.com. Now, there's other ways to get to me too. Macabrethrillers.com will take you there. If you put that in, Macabre Thriller will take you in. If you put Texas Poe Trope in, it'll take you there. If alwaysgreatthings.com will get you to me. So I have several URLs that will, get you there.
Nice.
But yeah, go there. That's the most important thing. But if you want to just go online, if you have Roku and the new Roku where you can search with your voice, bring up your Roku on the main homepage of Roku, and say Human No More, and it'll bring up all the places that it's streaming. Mostly, there's probably a few others out there that sometimes it won't bring up and sometimes it does. But you'll hopefully also get where the documentary is streaming to.
Yeah, you got a friend here, Jason Scott Martin, saying hello.
Oh, Jason. Yes. Jason was very, very helpful in writing Heather's Treehouse because he is ex-military, and I have a military guys involved in the story, but I could not understand all the ranks. And you think, oh yeah, well, this is how the ranks work. It's easy. I've seen it in the movies. It is not easy, and it is complicated. And Jason was so great at helping me figure out exactly what rank this particular character could be, and it would make sense. And he's in the special thanks in the beginning of the book. So he was great. Another guy I met through my day job, Brian Decimer, is super fantastic. He was just an expert on everything: knives, guns, any horses, anything you want to know about that stuff. He knew it without looking anything up, and he was very integral in helping me figure out all the weapons that I use in the story. And how they work and all that stuff. So yeah, again, people have been very helpful. At least Thomas, who was the cover hand on the book, and that's what the little making of the cover mini doc is. It's us shooting that picture, that photograph of her hand, all bloodied up, and showing how I did, created the cover in Photoshop. Otherwise, it's a fun little documentary, about 16 minutes.
Very cool. All right. Well, sounds good. So now everybody knows where to find you. So once again, thank you for coming on the show. It was so good.
Yeah, absolutely.
And chatting. It's been quite a while, so I was glad we could bring you on here and let everybody know about you.
Yes. And please, any investors out there, I have stuff to make, and I don't know how to meet you. And please come to my websites and come to me, contact me, and I'll talk to you, send you scripts, whatever needs to happen to make something else happen, So.
There you go. I hear you, brother. All right. Well, thanks again for joining us. Just hold on for a second. We're going to put you backstage, and we'll say goodbye to you as soon as we're off here, okay?
Sure. Yeah.
All right, everybody. Another great little show. And then, like I said, I wanted to be able to bring him on here. Haven't chatted with him for many years, but he's a tremendous writer, and I love his movies.
Yeah.
And
super interesting guy.
Nightmare Collection Volume 1, that My Skin. So that was really good. So I really, really enjoyed. That's how I met him. So I'm not quite sure how. Neither is he, but it happens.
All right, your age is showing.
No doubt. It shows more and more every single time, too. All right. Well, thank you guys again for joining us. Episode 101 in the books. Next week, we have another very special guest that we're going to be announcing on Facebook. So definitely look it up. And I guess that'll be that. And we'll see you next Wednesday.
Yes, sir.
All righty. Have a great night, everybody.